I'm entering the absolutely gigantic site of Monte Alban, the premier city of the Zapotec culture. The Zapotecs were the first people to bring language, calendar system, writing, numbers, numerology to Mesoamerica. This absolutely ancient site is the centerpiece, the center of all importance for these people, and held a position of power for nearly a millennia, if not more.
Monte Alban is one of the biggest, most well-preserved, most famous, and most important Mesoamerican sites in the Central American continent. It is gigantic. It was the ruling seat of the Zapotec Empire from about 500 BC up to its abandonment around 980. It lies in the Mexican state of Oaxaca. Oaxaca City, which I'm sure is a place you've heard about for its Dia de los Muertos ceremonies, its cuisine, its chocolate, its coffee, its culture, is located in a mountain valley. The city of Monte Alban is situated atop mountain peaks overlooking that valley, thereby being known by many as the City in the Clouds. All of what is now Oaxaca was once the Zapotec Empire, and their ruins are everywhere, as are the descendants of their people. Surrounding Monte Alban are many, many more Zapotec and Mixtec cities, all within a short driving distance of Oaxaca City. They include Atzompa, Mitla, San Jose Mogote, Dainzu, Lampeteco, Yagul, and more. During bus and car rides in the rural areas around Oaxaca, I've regularly seen remains of pyramids by the highways and in people's backyards. This is ancient territory.
Zapotec settlements dominated, controlled the Oaxaca Valley as early as 1000 BC, maybe earlier. And were separated into two kind of chiefdoms, fiefdoms, that were divided by an empty no man's land in the center, where there were no settlements, no agriculture, no nothing. And when those early cities began to fall in decline, that no man's land became the site where they planned and constructed Monte Alban, the premier city of the Zapotec civilization.
It's believed that the Zapotec civilization came together as a result of forming a military to resist external threats, building their first cities as palisaded fortifications. And ever since then, their military might was unflappable. Archaeological evidence in the Oaxaca Valley suggests that military raids were regular and were also a means to accumulate goods, to acquire slaves, and also burning down enemy territory and killing the competition as a means to hold on to power. Early hieroglyphics in the first city of San Luis Mojote regularly depicts the capture and sacrifice of any enemy combatants. Palisades constructed there suggest a regular need for defense, as does evidence in the many burned down and destroyed buildings at the site. So getting out of the valley and moving their central capital of Monte Alban to the mountaintops was very much a tactical military decision. There, isolated and protected, the Zapotecs could fortify their city and grow their military might, and in turn conduct more battles and raids on the competing communities in the valley below.
It's their military prowess that assured their dominance over the Oaxaca Valley. They easily assimilated all tribes, all cultures, into what would become the Zapotec civilization early on in its development. Murals all over Monte Alban and other sites depict warfare fought with armies of slope-headed individuals who were surely Mayan warriors and who were defeated every time, as well as multiple skirmishes with the Aztecs throughout their short-lived reign, which they always won. The Teotihuacan peoples, the mysterious Teotihuacan, had particular respect for the Zapotecs, devoting whole areas of their mighty city as Teotihuacan to the Zapotecs, settlements for Zapotecs, Zapotec neighborhoods, and vice versa here at Monte Alban, where there are Teotihuacan-style buildings.
This record of innumerable battles won is recorded in the hieroglyphics at Monte Alban. Many structures in the city are covered head to toe with depictions of castrated and sacrificed males. Originally called dancers due to the figures being positioned with arms and legs akimbo, it was soon realized that they were all missing penises and were bleeding from the crotch. Not necessarily something that makes someone wants to do a little happy dance. It's thought that these were captured leaders of competing communities, quite possibly Olmec kings. And it seems there was no better way to assert one's might and will on the people than to not kill their leader, but instead capture him, castrate him, and then return him to the city. I mean, it works for me with my enemies. After you've cut off their king's dick, you've now got a humiliated city with a daily reminder of a dickless king who now quite obviously must pay tithe to the Zapotec Empire lest they come back and do even worse. The Zapotecs had the most professional military in all of Mexico, and this is why they were never conquered, not by the Olmec, the Maya, the Toltec, or the Aztec. They resisted and survived until the arrival of the Spanish.
This mighty empire began somewhere around 1500 BC and stayed in control, stayed in power, well into the 1500s, when finally what it took was the Spanish conquistadors to bring about their collapse. But they did not kill them off. Over 400,000 Zapotec still survive to this day. Their language, their culture, their people still thrive. Only for a moment, for a blip in this timeline of history, have they lost control of this valley, which surely one day they will regain and rise to prominence in again.
At the time of Spanish arrival, the Zapotecs were in a weakened state. A 5-year war with the Aztecs had left the Zapotec Empire nearly defeated and at a state of uneasy truce with the Aztecs. Monte Alban had been long since abandoned, and their more modern cities, such as Mitla, were more a mix of Mixtec and Zapotec cultures rather than the militarily focused Zapotec societies of before. So at the time of Spanish arrival, their stance was to avoid and not participate in the Spanish-Aztec War, not really wanting to ally themselves with their almost conquerors to defend against the Spaniards, as well as no longer really having the military might to do so because of their war with the Aztecs. So their non-involvement led to the most formidable weapon of the Spanish Empire, disease, being the first shot fired at the Zapotecs, so that by the time of the Aztecs' defeat at the hands of the Spanish Empire and the Spanish king's foray into the Oaxaca Valley, the Zapotecs had already lost nearly 80% of their population to European disease. This meant the following invasion by the Spanish was met with little resistance, and all of the Zapotec territories quickly submitted to Spanish rule.
And remember, it's not just these buildings that are amazing feats of humankind to construct. It's that they did it way up here in the mountains. I'm out of breath from the altitude. It's so high up. And to build these structures, they had to do massive amount of planning and land development. They flattened the top of all these mountains, millions of cubic feet of earth moved to create a flat plain to begin to develop this city on top of, and then build these massive structures which they had to supply with water, with food, everything that was needed for a long 1,000-year reign.
Monte Alban is characterized by hundreds of terraces dug out of the mountaintop, atop of which were built plazas, temples, ball carts, residencies, and more. Symmetry was not important to the builders, as it was in many other Mesoamerican sites, and the city is a hodgepodge of buildings of different eras and styles, all laid out in a kind of rectangular fashion, skirting the edges of the mountain and leaving a massive rectangular plaza in its middle. Its many massive platforms contain impressive and steep stairs. Climbing them to the top reveals second and third layers of platforms or pyramids that you can't fully perceive from the ground. The oddest building at the site is a kind of arrowhead-shaped building dropped awkwardly at a corner of the central plaza that is one of the oldest. And this one contains hundreds of depictions of the castrated dancers, as well as scenes of beheadings and deaths. This is believed to be basically some kind of conquest building, bragging about all the wars won, with images of rivals' humiliation or sacrification, is that a word, put on display.
Just imagine the amount of man-hours spent constructing this. Stone Age peoples, no metal, no pack animals, slaving day in, day out for years upon years, for millennia, to build this place, this ultimate selfie spot for us to take part in and enjoy and take photos for, well, our dating profile of choice. All thanks to these mighty people and for the action this photo I'm about to take will get me tonight on Tinder. This is what a restored, undisturbed pyramid looks like. This is a pyramid without restoration efforts. This looks exactly as it was found. So this is what 1,000 years will do to something that was exquisitely crafted and built Nothing like our foolish, foolhardy efforts to construct our pallid, paltry homes of tin and wood, and our central heating systems, our air conditioning, and our wireless routers on which we transport ourselves daily into the web to look at people much cooler than us, much more better looking than us, living lives thanks to our overpowering depression, will never attempt for ourselves in this lifetime. The Zapotec were obsessed with glorification of nature, of human and the spirit, building these massive complexes by hand in tribute to the gods of the sky, the gods of the underworld, god of the sun, rain, corn, more, and to celebrate themselves and the human experience. Seriously, could you imagine doing that? You sycophant who can do no more than daily post hundreds of memes that pitifully approximate and express the way you feel. I mean, have you ever thought of actually talking for once, actually explaining how you feel, explaining who you are, what you're dealing with, what you're struggling? Have you ever thought that maybe if you open your mouth for 1 second, you'll realize that you spend 80 hours a week in some servile, menial position, working day in and day out for nothing, just to pander to the needs of the ultra-rich, whom you are subservient to and living in volunteered slavery to? Have you ever thought for a moment that if you could break free of those chains, of those bonds, you could reclaim that glory that is in the human experience, that could construct such massive edifices, glorifications to humanity, to the sky, to the land, to the earth, to God? Or are you just more concerned with picking up one more serving shift at the bar so you can raise enough money to go see that next music festival where Flunkadumpa is performing and smoke some of those dank nubs? Because spirituality isn't all fun and games, didgeridoos, incense, crystals, and jamming to fat, funky beats, ladies and gentlemen. Spirituality is taking this world that we are in with the utmost seriousness and giving it the utmost importance and putting the group, the identity of humanity, before the identity of the self. Spirituality isn't some fickle, feeble soul searching of meditation, looking for that higher power. It is saying the power is here, and we are going to respect that power and slave away and sacrifice our lives in the name of that power to, with next to nothing, with Stone Age tools, with Stone Age society, build these massive edifices of the type that no one today could ever figure out how to construct.
And whenever I visit any of these sites, I am confronted with things I hate to see. And that's not depictions of death or slavery or conquest. That stuff is quite interesting, and in a historical context, these are stories to learn from, to inform our present, so as to take these stories to heart and not commit the same mistakes of the past, which we are so blatantly doing today. But no, what offends me is that these places are always full to the brim with pseudo-spiritual North American and European white hippie tourists and some kind of foolish spiritual quest to Mexico or Latin America. To this day, I don't understand why North Americans and Europeans think they'll have some kind of spiritual epiphany by leaving the comforts of their modern and first world communities and traveling to third world nations whose people are systemically stuck in positions of hunger and poverty due to their continued subjugation by the very nations these tourists they themselves are from. Like, why do we have our little, let's live like a poor person trips where we turn a blind eye to all the poverty and hunger and suffering and come back and say, oh, they're such a spiritual people, I'm so inspired. Yeah, that's right. I mean, they are spiritual because they only have God to turn to, because they can't turn to a bottle of gin and a PlayStation 5 on a nightly basis like your privilege permits. Having no traditions of our own, we flock to these places so as to co-opt their culture and fill our own cultural void. We head to Oaxaca City to watch the Day of the Dead parades with no understanding or concept of the term ancestor or what ancestor worship is. We pay 500 pesos to get a sugar skull painted on our faces for our Instagram selfie. Trust me, I've been to Dia de los Muertos, and the ratio of white female tourists to local Latinas having faces painted with sugar skulls is about 9 white folks to 1 local. It's just so fucking obvious that this is a tourist racket, yet we walk right into it thinking it's a cultural or spiritual thing. but we just have to fly to Mexico to get to skull face paint, even though we can paint our faces with a skull any day of the week back home. And then we head to the ruins of a warlike society who was hell-bent on raiding, murdering, castrating, and sacrificing, and sit at the feet of one of their temples, which was most likely an administrative center for governing or finance or trade, and not a religious temple. And we have our little meditation session like this lady here to connect to an ancient civilization we are in no way related to, except that our ancestors killed them off so we can be kings in their land. I literally stumbled across this exact same meditating lady on Tinder later in the day, and of course her profile said that she was some liberal arts major from Germany on a spiritual retreat to Mexico looking to make new connections. Translation, looking to get banged by a brown person. I passed her over in favor of a 3-week romance with a popular Mexican TV star. My dick has never gotten so hard, not in such a long time as it did by the manipulation and artistry of her soft and supple hands. But she wanted to rush to marriage right away. Like our first 3 dates ended steamy, with her calling me on the 4th day and saying she couldn't see me again, only to call me the day after that and tell me she had to see me right away. A week and a half later into the romance, she invited me to her palatial mountainside home in the small village she lived in. At dinner, at all around town to the locals, she was introducing me as her future husband. She was curious, odd, attractive, sexy, passionate. During the day, she was her proud and independent TV star self, playing the game of celebrity and power, and just really projecting that image to anyone she met or talked to of superiority, or I'm not like you. But at the end of the day, when we were alone, she turned into an innocent little girl. Her voice literally changed to a different tone, no longer bordering on baritone and loud and commanding, now a high and whispering soprano, and standing by the window, her perfect naked body silhouetted in the moonlight, and literally asking me things like, "Querido, where do you think the wind comes from?" So I fell in love, hook, line, and sinker. But I couldn't just throw everything away after a 2-week romance. She's telling me she wants me to play sax in her band. There was actually a recent opening, that I could do double duty as being her tour manager and booking agent in the U.S., as her current one only did Central America and Europe. She had it all planned out perfectly. The rooms in the house I could use, and the job I'd take, and the role I'd play as lover and husband. But she's telling me all this in the same sentence about her past lover, whom she built her mansion with, of whom she said, "One day I just decided I didn't love him. I woke up and I knew I didn't love him anymore. I treated him that way without love for months until he finally gave up and moved out." So now you want me to move in with you? Like, I don't know if any of you viewers know any ultra rich people, but this kind of behavior is the trademark, like, because they don't understand consequence, because there isn't any. They have this big strong safety net in the form of unlimited wealth to rely upon. To her, it was like, just quit your career in the States and give up your life and live with me. And I'm like, yeah, it would be fun until 2 years later when you kick me out and now I've got to find a job and start over, something you can't relate to. So some of my friends shame me for not taking her up on the offer. I don't know if they were wrong or I was right or vice versa, but hey, if I hadn't left her, then I wouldn't be making this video for you 4 Instagram followers to watch. Definitely the right choice.
I know all y'all are thinking, ooh, what's inside those pyramids? There's probably all sorts of tunnels and tombs. And the truth is, ladies and gentlemen, most of these things, the interiors, well, tunnels and tombs are very scant. There's very few, because these pyramids were not made all at once. They were constructed over time. What's inside of these pyramids are other pyramids, smaller pyramids. Each generation, each king, each ruler would add another layer to a pyramid, changing its structure and its style to reflect taste of the day, who was in power, religion, any number of things. So it's not tunnels. It's not all Indiana Jones inside there, people. It's other pyramids. It's other structures inside that shit.
And folks, these pyramids and platforms are not hollow. They're not full of rooms and tombs, as so many movies and video games have told you. They are full of other pyramids. These structures were built in layers. The first people to come to Monte Alban basically built platforms, flattening the land and building small mounds on top of the flattened terraces. And with each generation of rulers, more land was flattened, more terraces built, and more layers added to the mounds built atop them. Soon, after 1,000 years of occupation, you have thousands of structures which are essentially onions, layers of sometimes 7 or more pyramids, which upon excavations were all discovered to have incredibly detailed and decorated exteriors depicting the events and conquests of that time period of the Zapotec civilization. I mean, basically just more images of castrations. entertainment, entertainment.